The oil-rich nation of Libya is on a knife's edge as warring groups vie for control of the capital. A months-long offensive led by strongman and commander of the Libyan National Army, Khalifa Haftar, has made its way to the southern doorstep of Tripoli. The city is home to the internationally recognized government. Haftar's offensive, launched in early April, has, by the latest count, left hundreds dead and thousands wounded. The violence is just the latest chapter for a country that has not had a functioning government since an international coalition ousted the longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi back in 2011. And since then, armed groups have been trying to overthrow the UN-backed transitional government and its parliament. Hailing from his eastern stronghold of Benghazi, Haftar and his LNA forces, which have been backed by Egypt and the UAE, recently rejected a UN plea for a ceasefire during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. And it's Libya's 6 million plus people who are stuck there in the middle, with estimates putting the number of displaced at over 50,000. Joining me now in the studio is Ashur Shamis, who's the editor-in-chief of the London-based Libya Tribune, and also Muzaffer Erjan Yilmaz, who is the Vice Dean at Uluda University and a Professor of Conflict Resolution and International Relations. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in. Now, I want to start by speaking about the humanitarian situation in Libya, because I feel it really isn't touched upon enough. And it looks like it is two-pronged. You've got the civilians who are caught up in the recent conflict, and also then, in Tripoli, those detention camps full of migrants and refugees. Tell us what's happening.
Inevitably, a situation like this comes up with casualties of all types, and especially with indiscriminate bombing and aircraft bombing and so on. So there are, the estimates are very rough, between 30,000 and 60,000 affected by this. Some the dead people are much less, but the injured people are. So most of these people have, in fact, been displaced. They had to leave their own homes, go and stay with families elsewhere, or stay in camps, displacement camps for the Libyans who are affected. So you have these people, and then you have the illegal immigrants coming from Africa and so on. So these people stay in large camps in Tripoli, mainly on the outskirts of Tripoli. They are organized by Libyans, by the government and so on, until they find somewhere to go to Europe or to travel to Europe.
And some of the testimonies I've heard, what I've read is absolutely, I really can't repeat on television just how bad, how dire the situation is in these camps. Why is it so bad? And I know it's partly due to the EU policy right now on migration, which is a subject for another debate. But why is it so bad?
It's been there, of course, for many, many years, this problem, even during Gaddafi time. It's because nobody wants these people there. They are coming without being invited, without having any facilities for them, and therefore they have to go. Nobody knows when they will be going to Europe. Europe doesn't want them, or does want some, but doesn't want others, and so on. So they're really caught between the Libyans feel embarrassed or weak, not able to do something for these people, because they don't think really it's their responsibilities to look after them.
So whose responsibility is it, Muzaffer, with this humanitarian situation?
I think the issue is very complicated because we are experiencing this issue because the peace process in Libya hasn't been successfully handled and completed. Of course, it's not easy to do so in a country where there has been a long history of conflict and there are so many tribal competitions. But there are certainly some missed opportunities. For example, after Gaddafi, a good constitution could have been designed so that these people do not have to, leave their homes. By that I mean designing good competition involves at least two dimensions, and one is designing a good power sharing, and the other is designing a fair election system. Both are critical for political stability, and when we look at the Libyan case, both failed. In talking about the election side, there was an election actually back in 2014, if I remember correctly, but there were lots of legitimacy problems, and the National Salvation Government didn't accept the result because of those problems. And on the other side, the government in Tobruk, led by General Haftar, is controlling a huge area, also oil reserves. And he has the navy, he has some army, and he was a very close friend of, Gaddafi back in 1980s. So the problem is, because he's getting more and more powerful, Libyan people might be fearful of being another Gaddafi, and it's understandable. So the humanitarian issue is a huge issue, and I think there is no easy solution to that problem. But maybe it is important to encourage the participation of NGOs because they can channel, humanitarian aids through the National Salvation Government so that they can ease the problem a little bit at least.
Ashur, I want to ask you, I have a quote here from one Italian aid worker who said, working in these camps, and said, Italy won't take Libya's migrants, but it will take its oil. How true is this?
Absolutely. This is the truth, The migration problem is very, very minor, both for the Libyans and for the Italians. But it is there. It is there every day. This is why people talk about it a lot. But really, it affects very little the situation in Italy or the situation in Libya. So the Italians and the Libyans would like to talk about other things and other matters, not this particular matter. I mean, today there are more injured and more who are in need of assistance than there are immigrants. The immigrant is not a problem. At least they are sitting there, eating, doing nothing, fair enough. But this is not the responsibility of the Libyans or the responsibility of anybody else.
Okay, now let's go back to the conflict itself and Turkey's role in Libya. It supports the current Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj's government of national accord. But what is its recent position now, given Khalifa Haftar's offensive on Tripoli?
Well, Turkey doesn't support that offensive move. Of course, has been supporting the National Salvation Government for a long time. Actually, Turkey finds itself to, support a side in a conflict where, it hasn't been solved. And Turkey has been supporting the National Salvation Government because it considers that government as the more legitimate one in comparison with the, Tobruk government. And that government, the National Salvation Government, is also being supported by the EU, Qatar, and United Nations. As you know, there's a United Nations support mission in Libya working through that government. At the same time, when you look at the other side, the other powerful side, the General Haftar side, Turkey's position can become more understandable because General Haftar was a close friend of Gaddafi back in 1980s. Then the two broke up, and he lived in Chad, if I remember correctly, for a while, and then went to the United States, lived in Virginia for 20 more years. Working for CIA as well. So the Libyan people are really fearful of the possibility that he would become another Gaddafi. And that possibility also threatens Turkey to a great extent. That's why Turkey is supporting the the western side, the Tripoli government.
Okay, Ashur, can Khalifa Haftar become another Gaddafi? How strong is he?
Well, before this, one could say yes, before this attack on Tripoli. But I think after the attack, Haftar has lost all credibility he might have had before. And he has no chance whatsoever in Tripoli to rule or to be part of a ruling elite or to be part of the solution of Tripoli.
Why?
Because he has committed something really very big, more or less a war crime against Tripoli. And the Tripolitanians are no longer looking at Haftar as someone with any solution
So
or
his
with
image
any contribution. Yeah, his contribution gone. Now, when we come to his power is two sections. The power he has on land in Tripoli and around Tripoli is weakening every day. It's being curtailed, it's being cut, it's being reduced every day. But he has support from overseas, from other countries, from other Arab countries and from France. So he can hit by air and so on. So this is his advantage, this is his only advantage. But again, this force he can only use against civilians, because the fighters in Libya, in Western Libya and Tripoli, are part of the society, part of the structure of the whole area. So he can't pinpoint a military facilities or things like that. Therefore, he has no way of continuing this for a long, long time.
All right, and we'll end on that strong opinion. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us more details about Libya, both the political situation and the humanitarian. Ashur Shamis and Muzaffar Erjan Yilmaz, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Thank you.